Hi everyone, this is a supplementary video for section 5.4, the other trigonometric functions. In this particular problem, we're going to have the secant value, or the secant of theta provided for us, which is going to be 5 over 4. We also know that theta is going to be somewhere between the measures of 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi. And our goal is to find the remaining 5 trig functions, given this information. So first off, let's go ahead and take a look at secant of theta is equal to 5 over 4. So we have a specific definition of secant of theta. We actually have a couple. And what I would suggest doing is working with the definition that states that the secant of theta is going to be equal to radius divided by x. Okay? In doing this, we've identified 2 of the 3 key pieces that we actually need. If you refer back to those definitions of your trig functions, they really are ratios comprised of either an x, y, or r, or our radius. So in this case, we know that r is equal to 5, and we know that x is equal to 4. So before we get too excited or move too far ahead of this problem, let's also take a moment to pay attention to what quadrant we're actually living in. So we're saying that the angle measure that we've been provided is between 3 pi halves and 2 pi. This puts us in the 4th quadrant here. So notice that if we are in quadrant 4, we can kind of default back to what we know about our unit circle. And our unit circle provides us quick reference to finding the cosine of theta and the sine of theta for some angle measures in there. So recall that the cosine of theta is going to be x over r, and that the sine of theta is going to be y over r. And also, let's pay attention to the fact that the x value that helps to kind of, I guess, border in quadrant 4 has positive values attached to it. So that means that x has to be positive. We also have the negative y values creating that other border against the 4th quadrant. So that tells us that y has to be negative. So the last thing that we can mention here is that r has to be positive. Remember the radius, so let's just kind of dash one in here. The radius measures a distance, and a distance can never be 0. So we're guaranteed that the value for the radius is going to be positive. So let's go back to our values to make sure that our signs are correct now. So we see that we have r, so r should be a positive 5. And we also have the x value. The x should be positive. Okay? So now we have basically 2 of the 3 pieces. We are still looking for what y should equal. So the good news is that we can use our equation for the circle to help us out. This is going to help us readily evaluate and get through this a little bit quicker. So I know that x is 4. I do not know y, but I do know r is 2. So this gives us 16 plus y squared is equal to 25. I'm going to remove 16 from both sides. And this is going to give me y squared is equal to 9. I will go ahead and hit both sides with a square root to take away that square. And now I have y is equal to 3. And here is where we have to make a decision. Our y value, does it need to be plus or does it need to be minus? Thankfully, we already did the legwork up here. Because we are in the 4th quadrant, the 4th quadrant uses the negative y values. So we can go ahead and make the call and say, all right, y is negative 3. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and shift this up a little bit just so I can see my 3 values. And now we go ahead and solve for the other 5 trig functions. So if we start off with cosine of theta, cosine of theta is the ratio of x over r, as we had previously mentioned. We know that x is 4, we know that r is 5. Okay, now we move to sine of theta. Sine of theta has the ratio of y over r. Y is -3, r is 5. Let's move right on to tangent. Tangent has the ratio of y over x. Y is equal to -3, x is equal to 4. Okay? Cosecant of theta. Cosecant of theta is going to be the reciprocal of sine. Okay? So we know that the ratio for cosecant will be the reciprocal, r over y. We know that r is 5 and y is -3. Okay. So recall that the negative can kind of float, so if you want to, you could move the negative up to where the 5 is, or you could just go middle of the road and put the negative right in line with the division bar. So these are all saying the same thing, but here's our solution. And finally, we want to do cotangent of theta. And if you recall, cotangent of theta is going to be the reciprocal of the ratio y over x. So this tells me that this is going to be x over y. We have x defined as 4. And we have y is equal to -3. And again, that negative is kind of safe to float around. So again, I'll just do it middle of the road. And here are our remaining 5 trig functions. I hope this explanation was helpful. If you do have any other questions, please do not hesitate to send me a message or come see me during office hours.